Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talk and Draw with Travis Hanson, and our special guest, Lucas Elliott. And I'm your
Hello
host,
there.
Patrick Scullin. Nice to meet you, Lucas. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you as well. Thank you for having me.
He's visiting from the Great White North. You can see that from the Aurora Borealis.
I almost want to go. Doo, 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 doo,
Yeah,
doo.
right. Or he just got off the crab boat, and he's here to draw with us today, right?
Yeah, totally. Drop my huskies off with my sled around the corner. I'm getting ready to. Yeah, I'm here. I'm ready for it.
Nice. So just a little bit about Lucas. He's worked for IDW, Upper Deck. He's got a graphic novel called Moose. Worked on a variety of different projects. We're really excited to have him here with us. He loves to draw interesting, fantasy, whimsical characters, burly characters, all kinds, right?
I like your
Yeah.
lumberjack mermaids. So
Yeah. No, I did a whole series of mermen, and the lumberjack was the one that started it off. Mostly because we have mermaids all over our house, and I'm like, you never see any mermen. Like, you never see any manly mermen. So I was just like, let's see what I can do. And I started making them a few years ago, and they just kind of took off. And now I'm kind of slightly known as like the merman guy. So,
And so for that, we're not going to draw mermen. Travis has an idea for us on what we're going to draw while we talk today.
today's
Well, actually, sorry, I cut you off there, Travis.
that's okay. I'm used to it.
Bad segue on my part. I was just going to say that we're talking about artistic inspiration, and I got some questions prepared for us, but Travis, you can explain our art project.
Well, it's funny that you say artistic inspiration. Today we're going to draw Sasquatch Lumberjacks. We're going to have fun with that, and I'll start that off, and we'll do the shared screen, and then we'll get chatting, and we'll go from there. So let me do a quick share here.
perfect.
All righty. We're ready to go to town.
So while Travis is sketching away, I thought we'd just run around and kind of answer each of us what inspires you artistically. Travis, you want to start?
Well, it's kind of, I think with inspiration, it goes through different stages and phases, and different things will get you set up and going. Watching my kids play was always a big inspiration for me. My relationship with my wife has been an inspiration for some of my pieces. But the other thing is like, for me, I will do free sketches at conventions, and people will come up and say, well, draw me a robot fish or a stormtrooper hippo or whatever. And that gives me incredible inspiration. In fact, that has fueled some of my best pieces, was listening to what other people would suggest at a convention.
So feedback from your audience helps, huh?
Oh, I love feedback. I actually thrive off of it.
I don't like being told what to do. I don't know what's different about you, but
Well, I mean, it's not when you're doing a free sketch for somebody, it's a quick, 1 minute doodle. It's not that important. And you can have a lot of fun with it, especially when they give you a lot of rain. And that is where I think the most important thing of that whole inspiration process is just listening and gathering the ideas, because you start to learn what's popular too. What do people like? I mean, I found that unicorns were huge one year. Merfolk are big. It's amazing how it just kind of motivates you to come up with new things.
how about you, Lucas? What inspires you artistically?
Well,
That's a great
mermaids do.
question. Yeah. I mean, more in the last couple of years, it's really been a lot of my environment, really just kind of embracing a lot of what it is to be Alaskan, and kind of what's around me, and kind of thinking of, like, it's very kind of fantastical up here, just because you have these, rolling mountains, lots of trees, all sorts of different things that are just around you. So that's been really kind of influencing a lot of my work in the last couple of years, which is funny because a lot of younger artists, especially in Alaska, they try to get away from the Alaskana style artwork, because there's a lot of Alaskan artwork up here and a lot of like moose and bear and mountains and oceans and everything like that. And so a lot of the younger crowd are very much like, no, I don't want to do that. And I was very much in that crowd as well. But I'm also like, well, this place is almost like a fantasy land in and of itself. So how can I adapt to that? But I also agree with Travis. I get a lot of inspiration from people that I talk to at shows. I get a lot of inspiration from people that I get to meet at gallery openings, and because they're like, well, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? Have you ever thought about taking a story here? Or even just having conversations with friends, and we'll be joking around, and all of a sudden I have this great idea for a short story that I'm like, I got to do this.
That's great. Well, for me, I guess I would say that visually speaking, I take inspiration from anywhere and everywhere. And I'm a big movie buff. I love watching movies and TV and stuff too. So I can't help but I love referencing pop culture in what I do too. But I always want to try to put my spin on it somehow, you know?
For sure.
Of course.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, of course, there are a lot of artists I'm inspired by too, but I don't know. For me, it's a big mismatch.
Well, and see, that's the hard thing about saying, well, you know, where are you inspired? A lot of us are inspired from multiple sources, you know, and it's just learning how to mesh that together. I can remember taking a drive through Arizona and looking at the mountains and just going, wow, you know, there's faces in there. Or I would drive up to Utah and you drive through the gorge, and it's the same thing. You see these faces in the rocks, and you start looking at mythology, and you start looking at, you know, all these cool little things, and then you realize, you know, there's so much more out there that in reality we are living in a fantasy world. I really like that, what you said, Lucas, about, you know, Alaska having that fantasy like quality. You know, as one of the gigs I got to do years ago was I got to draw skinwalkers, and you know, that's based off Native American history. And I thought, you know, how cool is that, being able to take someone's, you know, an imagination of a bear and merge it with a person, you know, just to do something different. And I think that allows us, you know, creatively, however you're going to say that.
Creatively?
Long night, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're on the right track, though.
Yeah, thank you. Creatively, to see things differently. And you get to a point where I think you're looking at stuff and you go, well, how do I take that ordinary, you know, lamppost and I make it fantastic? And for me, one of the best images that comes to mind is the lamppost in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's, you know, this lamp in the middle of the forest. What a great image of just something out of place.
Yeah.
In a fantastic world. Well,
you know, leading away from that, you know, where do good ideas come from? You know, is there a secret elixir we can draw from? You know, what is it that makes good ideas happen?
Maybe I like sketchbooks or sketching. I find a lot of my best ideas just come from a simple sketch.
How about you, Lucas?
You know, I think Travis is not wrong on that one. I think it's, yeah, having just a sketch, it kind of blooms into something different, and you're just like, oh, I can take this somewhere and I can kind of continue with this idea, all because you just had a weird idea in your head and you just sort of started wanting to kind of play with it. You know, I think it really kind of comes a lot from your environment, and that could be the people around you, that could be the interactions that you have. My story that I have with, I have a webcomic that webcomic, because I have one issue out and that's about it. Issue 2 should be eventually out. But it's called Battlestar, about a warrior starfish who is defending the 7 seas. And this all kind of came to be because my wife and I were having a conversation about a tattoo artist friend of ours. And I was like, you know, one of these days I should get him to draw me a tattoo. And she's like, well, what kind of tattoo? I was like, I don't know, like a starfish, like right here on my elbow, but not just a starfish, but a warrior starfish. I wonder what that looks like. And then I drew a sketch, and now I have 2 issues, working on issue 3 of Battlestar.
Dude, that's awesome.
Awesome. That sounds really good. Well, so I mean, good ideas can come from anywhere then, right?
Oh yeah.
There is no one way to get a good idea. And I guess you just have to be open for it, right?
Well, you kind of do. I mean, I'm a strong believer too. I think time plays a little bit into it as well. I find some of my best ideas usually come early in the morning when I don't want to get up. Um, sometimes the best time to draw really is when it's absolutely silent in the house and quiet, and you find the ideas uninterrupted. Um, I stopped kind of watching a lot of TV because I found that my ideas were being manipulated. And I didn't want that. I wanted them to kind of be kind of clean and pure and just create my own style.
So what comes first, the art or the story?
What do you think, Luke?
I think that's a good question. I think it kind of goes hand in hand. Like they're both synonymous with one another. Like the art is there, but it's being influenced by the story, but the story is being influenced by the art. Because oftentimes when I'm thinking of a character, say if I'm just drawing a lumberjack Bigfoot, like what is their story? What are they doing? Why is that thing happening? So that kind of helps to influence what the art looks like by thinking of the story in and of itself. But yeah, I think it kind of just goes back and forth.
I think it kind of goes with my personal opinion too, that I have been trained just to love comics. And so for me, it's all about the art. So if I can't engage with the art, I can't engage with the story. So I think for me, the image is kind of the germ of the idea, and then it gets fleshed out, and then the story comes together. But I think I think visually. So everything just comes to me in images, I think, most of the time.
Well, you got to look at what we're talking about here. You're using, for an artist, the image is definitely going to be visual. You're going to see that first, especially when creating a story. We're looking at it, and I guess today's thing is a good example. Drawing these lumberjack Sasquatches, then Lucas makes a mention about a starfish. And I'm thinking, what a better way, what a fun way. So it kind of just evolves. And for me, visually, I'd rather have it just evolve and see where it goes. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at it going, I bet I can get a story out of this, or I can see a story already being created. And then it starts to, and then then I have to switch gears. I'll start going backwards and I'll look at it and go, okay, now I'm going to write it. How do I write it? I have this great starter image, but now I need to create a more of a real, a story that goes with it.
So true. That's looking awesome, Travis. I like how just on the fly, live right now, you decided to throw that in there.
Well, yeah, because, space starfish sound pretty dang amazing.
You got a lot of things working for you right there.
So let's switch screens and jump into Lucas.
You ready,
All right.
Lucas?
Ready.
Yeah, give me just a second.
Actually, let's go back and change that up. All right.
All right, there we go. So
Nice.
Yeah, I kind of started on my own as well.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I think that Sasquatch, he may not have the necessary need for the tools, so he's like, I've got my own way of chopping trees down, so I'm gonna do this my own way. And
I like where it's going. I love your character design too.
Thank you. So funny enough, I actually did a sketchbook last year with my friend Bob Q, and it's called Going Squatchin' with Bob and Lucas, and it's an entire sketchbook. Like his is like an actual 10-page story about a bear and a Sasquatch that are having just like this very intellectual conversation about life and everything, and then my half is like 10 pages of Sasquatch in just doing various things, but it's not the same Sasquatch. Because I think Sasquatch, they can look different. They've got, you've got different species from all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's a question for you. So you're working in Procreate, right?
Shoot. Yep.
And you're a layers guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. I've got 2 layers going on right now. So just to kind of show you what I started with, like this is my initial sketch. This is usually where a lot of my ideas kind of come into play. So they're very gestural, very quick, very loose. And then next layer on top, I'll reduce the first layer and then just start kind of fleshing out my different shapes.
See, I like that a lot. And I like the way that you created your Sasquatch character design, which I think a lot of people don't realize. There's a lot of, people think that you have to draw a certain way. And, one of the great things about what we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks by doing this is how unique artists are in their designs. And there's no real right and wrong design setup, and I like that. It's drawing what you're comfortable with. And I love I like the lumberjack. I actually kind of like his little legs. There's just something about that just cracks me up.
I've had a lot of conversations with other artists over the years, and a lot of it boils down to the rule of thirds and proportions, and really kind of playing a lot with foundational shapes. And my original background was traditional media and life drawing, but I always knew I wanted to get into comics, so I really had to learn how to like push my shapes and where I wanted to kind of create balance within a lot of different characters and different designs. And that's just taken a lot of practice over the years and a lot of failure.
Well, there's a couple things you mentioned there that I'd like to follow up on. First is, the value of failure in art, but then also for a minute, you mentioned something about the rule of thirds. How do you use the rule of thirds when you're designing characters?
Oh yeah. So really kind of thinking the balance of heavy versus light, the contrast of it. I had a great conversation with an artist a few years ago where, like, let's say one of my characters, I paced everything out to where they were a good size. I was like, oh, this looks, palpable. This works for a character. But what if I were to increase the head, shrink the body, and really kind of push the legs even more? So adding more visual weight up here in the top 2 sections, but then keeping the bottom section longer. So your eye sticks more to the top end as opposed to looking through the design all throughout. Or playing with shapes. Where do those 3 particular shapes work in regard to the design itself? So a lot of it, I'm actually teaching illustration at the university here in Anchorage this semester. And so a lot of what I've been working with my students on is no matter what, if you're drawing more realistic or more illustrative or animation based, really kind of playing with your shapes to make them that much more unique and diverse.
Especially when you're dealing with animation.
Yep.
I love that.
Well, that was what I always wanted to get into, was animation. My original idea was, I'm gonna go work for Disney one day. That's gonna be my thing.
Haven't we all thought that, right?
I didn't.
Well, that's really great. I like seeing that, and it's interesting how just messing around with those proportions, it increases, makes it a funnier drawing or it makes it a sadder drawing. How you can play with comedy and everything, just messing around with the shapes.
Oh yeah.
And then failure. What is it to you about failing your way to success that makes sense as an artist?
Well, that's a good question. We learn from our failures. We learn what works, what doesn't work. We do get discouraged, but depending on how we persevere from that, we can create something great. Now, that's not meaning that you keep going at it hard until you finally figure it out. Sometimes it means walking away and letting it sit and letting it and thinking about it and then coming back at it and approaching it from a different perspective. I've been very much the kind of person that will just throw a delete or throw away a piece of art just because I'm like, this is not working. I've worked at it from a few different angles. This is not it. Let me try it again, but I'm going to try it on a new piece of art. Start fresh, start with a fresh brain, fresh idea, and be okay with learning from where you can improve upon.
That's great. Sometimes I think I get a little too tied to what I'm doing, and I think it's good advice to be willing to set it aside, even toss it aside, and try again.
Yep.
You know, we were talking about failure. I look at failure merely more as stepping zones to get you to another place. You know, some people, it's like they'll treat failure as the end of all. You know, I can't do this or I can't go forward. And for me, it's just like, well, it's just part of the road to success. You got to have failure. It's kind of crucial.
100%.
Well, who was it that said, you know, you miss every shot you don't take? Was that Kobe?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Maybe.
Well, I said it then.
Okay, so you said it.
Proud of you.
You miss every shot you are not willing to take.
So let me, I got a question for you. You know, as you work in Procreate, and I think a lot of artists are going to enjoy this. Did you create your own brushes, or did you, you know, what makes you decide to use the brush that you use?
So when I bought Procreate, kind of like with Photoshop, you know, I just used the brushes that were there. I was like, all right, they got a round brush. They've got this brush. They've got this one. Perfect. I'm set. Over time, again, my original background is more traditional. So I like if I zoom in, you can see how these brushes have that like a little bit of gradient. They have a little bit of like pixelation to them. So it gives it more of like a dry ink brush. And
Right.
I was kind of looking for something like that because I wanted to be able to have my shapes be tapered and unclean and a little bit messy, because I think it gives more character to whatever you're working with. So I started looking around. I did learn how to make my own brushes, but who got time for that? I ain't got time for that.
Exactly.
So I started looking for brushes from other creators, and in that I actually found a lot of other designers and creators that I've become inspired by because of their own work. But the brushes that I'm using right now, and I'm going to pull it up, it's the Max Use Sable Inker. This is what I use for most of my inking nowadays.
Cool.
This particular brush was created by Maxie Lickney, who does a lot of brush work with Procreate right now. He just released a whole big watercolor pack. I feel like I'm promoting him right now, but seriously,
hey, we're here to promo anything we can do.
No, actually, I think I just saw he did a bunch of charcoal ones, maybe too.
Yeah.
I was going to download those.
I've got his comic brushes, gouache brushes, watercolor. Like I picked up a few. Anytime he puts a new one out, I was like, I'll give it a shot. Because it's that idea of I'm supporting another artist. I'm supporting somebody who took the time to really make these brushes, to really work on them. And it really has changed a lot of my own workflow just because I've gotten comfortable with these. I work with them all the time. I know how they pull. I know how they move. And they're fun. They work really well.
So what would be your biggest obstacles you feel that you face as an artist?
I think honestly, time. That's always been one of the hurdles, is just never feeling like you have enough time to get your projects done, never enough time to devote to your stories or your ideas, because
Amen.
you have all sorts of different things going on. Like I will say, since everything that's been happening with the isolation, like I live in Alaska, most of us are isolated anyway. But with that, I've really kind of focused on spending more time working on my stories and working on my scripts and trying to get my ideas figured out, because I feel weirdly enough motivated for it, because I feel like I have time. I'm like, I don't have to see anybody. I don't got to go to anybody's house. I don't have a barbecue to go to. All right, I'm gonna stay home and sit in my comfy sweater and work on projects.
Yeah, the isolation of an artist.
Yeah. It's like I'm a very busy person because I work a couple different jobs. So with that, like art is still 30-ish hours of my week, but I have to work on commissions. I've got to work on client work. I've got to work on all the other things. So I think that's the big hurdle, is finding times to devote to the things that you want to do.
You know, you make a really great point there. We're not, you know, people look at artists and they think, well, we're always working on our own projects, but we're not. We're always working on many projects. And I think that's important for our, you know, people that want to go into this profession, that one, it's not as incredibly glory filled as it is imagined to be. But two, you have to hustle, just as much as you're drawing. You have to spend time promoting. You have to spend time reaching out. There's so much more to being an illustrator or an artist than just sitting at your table and drawing. And I think people don't realize that.
Well, to be perfectly honest, you're the one that really taught me that too. Because when I first met you, like 7 years ago at Emerald City Comic Con, Mike was like, "You should go talk to this guy." It was like just watching you over the last 7 years and seeing how you hustle and how you work. Because I know you're busy. I know you've got your family. You've got all sorts of different responsibilities that you have to be there for. So it's time management.
Don't let him fool you.
I gotta butter him up a little bit.
No, but to be honest, I learned that from a couple other artists. I learned that from Bill Stout and Sergio Aragonis and such. But at the same time, yesterday was a great example. I worked. I had to force myself to work, but man, I did not want to. I wanted to just, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's just a realistic emotion that I think we feel as artists. But that whole point of you've got to keep moving, you got to keep hustling, because I think that what people don't realize is the minute you stop posting, the minute you stop sharing, you disappear. And you're easily forgotten as a creator.
Well, and I think the other side of that, though, is especially with times like this, like a lot of what we do is very emotional because we tie a lot of our emotion into our work because it's part of us. And so with that, there are times where you just need to take a step back and say, you know what, I'm going to take a day for myself. It's okay if I do this, because in the long run, taking a day for myself is going to make me more refreshed, better, and just ready to tackle the project. Kind of like what I said earlier, where it was like, if you have a piece that's just not working for you, take a step back and take a break.
Well, who was it? Someone that said that if you don't take time for your body will make you take time.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't take the shot.
That's right. Attributed to Patrick Scullin.
Scullin, thank you very much.
Well, let's jump into Patrick for a bit and see what you're working on.
All right.
Right on.
Though I love the Sasquatch that you've got.
Yeah. I was going to say, before Lucas signed off, we could look at the full screen, but
let me bring it back real quick.
Yeah, let's see the full image real quick.
No, I was just like, all right, let's pass it over.
You've got a great Bob Ross feel from the chin down.
That's not the first time I've heard that.
And I like the happy tree.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, he's less happy because he's kind of missing a chunk.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
All right, let's jump into Patrick.
All right, let's see what we get.
Right.
Here it comes.
It's magic. Wow, those are some big feet.
Wow.
Well, he's Bigfoot, right?
I like it. I like his belt buckle.
I'm loving that mustache. I wish I could grow a mustache like that. Look at that.
Well, I got to tell you, for some reason, when I was drawing him, I kept thinking Ron Swanson. I don't know why, but I'm like, I got to make a Ron Swanson Sasquatch Lumberjack. But
how many layers do we have in this?
I just have 3 right now, but this is kind of where I was starting, and kind of riffing off what Lucas was saying about proportion. I was trying to push myself to make his feet really big and then make his body tapered and I like the Popeye forearm kind of idea for this guy too.
Oh, it works really well. Playing
around with that and then kind of refining it. And I want to avoid the Santa Claus look, but I was trying to play around with widening his eyes and kind of making him look like they're a little deeper set in there.
I mean, he looks very distinguished.
Yeah, he's a very thoughtful pensive Sasquatch. He's got a lot of time on his hands to think about stuff.
Don't we all?
Well, kind of what you guys were saying about having the time now to work and, maybe think about things a little more on our own. This podcast is an example of that, where Travis and I decided to start drawing together just to kind of have a little conversation, have a little fun. And I love the fact that we're discovering all these new things this way too, because of it,
Yeah.
Well,
for us, at least, it's been a real treat.
It's been good to see how other people create and get a feel for what they can do, and how much value that actually has, and watching how other people approach stuff. You're both teachers, and you both work in teaching, people to work in the graphics industry and in illustration and stuff. And as the question I guess to both of you is there a right or a wrong way to do stuff? Or how much of it is actually just you and finding what works for you, as long as you get the result that's needed?
See, I think that's a really good question, because, when you go to normal school and you learn math or you learn writing and whatever, you're like,
Normal school.
There is only one answer, right? 2 + 2 is 4. But in art and design, that's not the case. There are multiple right answers. And your job, I think, as a teacher is to provide as many opportunities for students to find those answers as they can and discover, what resonates with them. And a student really just needs to be open-minded to test and fail, and then try again until they get it right. Maybe we have more in common with science, where we have to have the artistic method, not the scientific method. We just have to keep trying stuff until it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that I've found a lot in the last few years, because I do teaching, but I also have done workshops, is depending on the age, a lot of them, they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of trying something and it not working out. I'm like, well, why can't you do it again? Why can't you just try something different? And you have to be comfortable with finding that ability to say, it's okay to say, all right, well, that didn't work. Let me try something new. And it becomes more of a thought process of getting to that solution. So art in and of itself, like, you have to understand the foundations. Like, there's always going to be the foundations that are there, and students have to build on that. Like, and I was definitely not that student. I was like, oh, I don't want to spend time drawing boxes and doing shadows and things like that. That's dumb. That's not going to get me to draw comics and things like that. Guess what I do for practice nowadays?
Boxes.
All the boxes, all the spheres, all the squiggly lines, and I'm like, I guess they were right.
Well, it's also, I think, an understanding of the age level that you're working with too. One of the things that I run into at conventions is I'll have parents come up to me and they tell me how great their kid is and how, they're going to be an artist and they're going to do all these great things. And then you look at the kid and the kid's like, I just want to draw. And, and I think that, part of the teaching process or the learning process is you have to develop a love for it to succeed at it. And, my advice has always been to these kids, actually, the first thing I'll tell the parents that they need to step back a little bit and just let the kid be a kid. But then at the same time, you tell the kid, draw what you like to do. If you like to draw Pokemon, draw Pokemon. If you like to draw, My Little Pony, draw My Little Pony. If you like to draw, draw what you like and develop that love for it. And then when you get about to high school, then start taking classes to kind of refine and learn the basic techniques, and then experiment, start to play. You got to learn how the body works before you can, blow it up into all over, all the different shapes and proportions that you create. You need to know the basic setup. So there are, I think, some set guidelines to learn, but at the same time, you know, there's that when is it appropriate to start teaching that? When do you want to work with that kid? And my thing is always been with some of these parents is that they want to push. And then the kid's like, all right, I'm 11 years old and I don't want to draw anymore. I'm done. And they've ruined or lost an opportunity to allow the kid to develop or to create. You know, I felt really lucky. I grew up with an artist. My mom was a China painter. And so I was always encouraged to draw. And that worked. Now, I never knew this was going to be a career, but and I had to go a different route. See, I had to go a route that didn't involve school. I learned in the field. I didn't go to college to learn how to draw. I read a ton of books and I looked at lots of different things and I practice all the time. So I learned in field. So my education was actually in the field. So
Well, I think that's a pretty good teacher. learn from the school of hard knocks.
No, that's a great school. It's tough.
You got a good degree.
You mastered in it.
Yeah. I don't know if I mastered in it. I think that's an ongoing process, you know.
Oh.
It's a school you never graduate from.
Right. So well, Lucas, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, no, exactly. I get a lot of, when I'm usually doing shows, because I do a couple Comic-Cons outside of Alaska, but I do a couple of Comic-Cons in Alaska as well as a bunch of holiday shows. Most of my shows in the fall are usually Christmas shows because, you know, people want Christmas presents. And I get a lot of kids that will bring their portfolios to these events and they're like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to take a look at my stuff? Can you give me some advice? And of course, the biggest advice is always keep drawing. Just keep creating, keep experimenting, be okay with letting a piece go. But always the question of, well, how do I find my style comes up. And style comes from inspiration. Style comes from influences. Style comes from drawing a lot. But I think it is, again, it boils down to that time of this is not something that is going to happen all at once. It does take time. And I think a lot of parents oftentimes think, oh, well, my child, as you said, 11, they should be a lot further ahead. And it's like, no, everybody's journey is a little bit different. Everybody's journey is a little bit more personal. And like one of the things that I did with one of my presentations recently was I compared a piece that I did 10 years ago to a redrawing of that piece that I did recently, because I was just like, you know what, I think it'd be fun to reinterpret this one. And I was like, this is the evolution of my art, and who knows where my art is going to be 10 years from now.
No, I've noticed that. I wasn't even happy with my art until I was in my 30s.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
You know, and now it's changing again, and I'm about to hit 50. And you make up a really good thing. And I don't think it's just kids. I think it's artists themselves. You know, people come up to me and they say, well, you're so successful in the career. And they're only looking at the end part. They're not looking at the 25 years that it took me to get from point A to point B and still not feel like I'm at point B yet. You know, and that's, someone said that creating a career as a freelancer is like farming. You do a lot of planning. But if you're willing to stick it out, it does grow and it does develop.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
You ready to switch back?
Well, what I was going to say is, imagine you're getting your eye test. Do you like eyes number 1 or eyes number 2? 1, 2.
I like 1, but that's just me.
Like those?
I like 2.
I'll go back to 2. Well, 2 is good too.
This is 2.
I like the furrowed brow a bit more. There's a lot more focus in the eyes.
Yeah, there is a lot more focus. It's his mustache though that I'm really. I'm just curious what he uses to get it for that curl.
He uses tree sap.
I was going to say maple syrup, but yeah.
All right. I'm going to pass it back to Travis.
Perfect.
All right.
So, we've kind of talked about school and things like that. Here's a question: What other things can we do to inspire other artists or other people around us?
Well, I look at like Pascal. He posts every day. There's always something new and he taught me that a long time ago. We had a nice chat about that, about the importance of posting something every single day. And I think that can be inspirational to other artists. I also think that things that you can do is not, is just share what you're working on, share your style and your designs and your thoughts and stuff, and be open to allow people to have an opinion about it. I think one thing that artists forget, or creators or anybody in general, is the minute you put something out there, someone's going to have an opinion, and it's going to either be positive or it's going to be negative.
Tell that to George Lucas.
Well, yeah, there's always our resident Star Wars fan here.
There's two.
I like Star Wars too. Don't get me wrong, But
I've been doing a ABC fan art challenge on Instagram where I'm drawing a new Star Wars character every day.
I saw that, and that was pretty awesome. I've been watching those.
I really love the IG-88.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No. We can talk Star Wars too. That's all.
No. I want to hear what you have to say though.
But I do think that we come into a point though where we realize that once we realize that someone's going to have an opinion and it's okay, then we're allowed to kind of grow a little bit more. And what's even more important is understanding that just because someone has an opinion about your work, and it could be right, it could be a little off. They're talking about the body of work. They're not talking about you as an individual. And I think that sometimes a lot of artists, especially younger ones and a couple older ones that I know, are more concerned about, well, this is me you're criticizing, when in reality they're not. They're talking about things that might not work for them. And I think for me, the growth actually happened when I was able to separate myself from my artwork, to be able to go, okay, I can make a change here. I can adapt and grow. And that's, I think, when I really started to develop as an illustrator, was when I could listen. And I can remember getting an incredible portfolio review critique from Eddie Pittman. And it was one of the best critiques I've ever had. And, he really talked about what a studio was looking for and why certain pieces that he liked of mine wouldn't work. And it was a great opportunity for me to grow.
That's a very mature attitude to have that I aspire for, because I don't have it.
I didn't have it for a long time. Oh.
Well, art is very personal. I think Lucas said that earlier. So to be able to step back and separate yourself from it, I think is, for me, that impediment to getting it out there. Sometimes you might be embarrassed or nervous to put it out there because you don't want to be critiqued. You just want to share it, but we have to get over that.
Oh, heck yeah. And that's a hard thing to do. And I think that stops a lot of people from learning. And because we get comfortable, I think we develop a style sometimes and we get super comfortable into it, and we're afraid to try something new. As much as I love Calvin and Hobbes, I'm a huge fan of Bill Watterson's work, but I know that he's now trying other things. He's spending more time watercoloring, doing stuff for him. I think he's pushing his own envelope to see what else I can do, with his success. But I think, as illustrators or as artists, we've got to keep growing, or else we become very stagnated. And even with Life of the Party, I find that I have to be careful because I can get stagnated without even realizing it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what I tell people is find artists that inspire you, but not just in the one area of art that you're doing. Like if it's just comics, great, you've got a bunch of comic artists, but what about painters? What about sculptors? What about printmakers? What about designers? Like one of the big things that I've really started to enjoy in the last few years is shape design with graphic design for like logos and illustrative logos, just really kind of the complexities of what it takes to put a few shapes together to make something that represents a brand. I think that's been a lot of fun, just kind of exploring the simplification of that, because it does take a lot of practice and understanding.
Now you're talking. Yeah.
Hey, that's Patrick. He's all about fonts.
Oh yeah, no, I've been loving that too. My handwriting is still chicken scratch, but I can do a halfway decent font now.
You know, I was going to say too, shapes. I follow some sculptors on Instagram. I can't think of their names right now, but I love seeing maquettes and that kind of thing. Those things really inspire me, little character maquettes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I love looking at those type of designs. But logos, yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
So what was the best advice you got, Lucas, that kind of helped you define your career?
You know,
don't say from Travis. No.
Well, Travis once told me.
No, I did not see, and I'll be first to admit that. I am not that influential. I am just, no.
Actually, you know, it was a few years ago. There's an event that was actually supposed to be happening this weekend down in Juneau called Alaska Robotics Minicon and Artist Retreat. So a couple of guys who own a comic shop called Alaska Robotics Art Gallery, they do a comics event / artist retreat in Juneau, and at a campsite where they have like 60 to 70 artists, designers, creators, mostly comic artists, but we've had people from Leica show up, we've had sculptors show up, printmakers, and so on. And it's just this big community event, and it's so much fun because you get to really connect with other creators in a way that you wouldn't normally get to connect. Even if it's at a Comic-Con, you're still in like kind of a business mode. Whereas this one, everybody is just like, oh, we're just hanging out, we're just having a good time.
I want to go.
You should definitely come up. If you ever want to come to Alaska, this is a great way to do it. But yeah, so the event was supposed to be this last weekend. But one of the regulars that comes up is Kazuki Booey, who does Amulet.
Oh yeah.
And he is such a fantastic guy to talk to. Like I'm very honored to say that I've known him for a few years now. But one of my favorite things that he told me, we were sitting in the lobby of a hotel, just kind of chatting, and he goes, "Well, how you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm doing all right. You know, I'm working on a few projects." He asked what projects I'm working on, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm just really having a hard time just finding time to do things. I'm planning this and I'm planning that." And he just went, "Can I give you a bit of advice?" I was like, "Well," he goes, "Just do it."
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" He goes, "Just do it. Like you can plan all you want for things, and you can continue to plan and continue to plan and continue to plan, but sometimes you just have to let yourself do it." And that was like, I understand where he was coming from with it, but it's something that does resonate with me often, because it's like, I took me 2 years before I even started working on Battlestar. And then, by that point, I was like, the idea kept changing, and I was like, all right, I'll get to it eventually. Same with the kids graphic novel I'm working on right now. I've had that story in my head for almost 12 years. And it got to a point where I was like, you know what, if I don't do it, it's never going to happen, and I just need to let it go. So just do it.
You know, what a great bit of advice. I think a lot of us have had that over the years. You know, for myself, it was very similar. It was talking to another artist, and then him looking through my portfolio and asking me a question: why wasn't I published? And before I could answer him, he was like, "Do you even want this?" And it was like, "How bad do you want it?" And then I tried to answer that, and he goes, "Shut up. You can't tell me that you want something." He goes, "I don't believe you." And he was right. And he basically said that if you want something bad enough, show me that you want it. You know, that's how you will prove this industry that you want something bad enough.
I had a similar experience. I remember many years ago going around Comic-Con, showing my portfolio and talking to different art directors and getting my feelings hurt. And one day I was feeling kind of down, but I decided to walk through Small Press and see what those artists were up to. And I met Art Baltazar for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And he had a book called Patrick the Wolf Boy. And so I was automatically drawn to it. And I just started talking to him, and he was, in his simple wisdom, he just said, you know, don't care what anybody else says. Do your own thing. Just do it. Just like Lucas, just do your own thing. And he looked at me straight in the eye and he's like, you're going to make it happen. And it was like, that was the little, pep talk I needed at the right time to just say, you know what, you can beat your head against a wall and just try to impress people with what you think they want, but just make the art you want to make and stick with it,
Oh, heck yeah. All right. I like how he came out.
Yeah, he's looking great.
Well, I think you're right on that one. A lot of times we get stuck on, well, what does everybody else want? What does everybody expect of me? And comics are for you art is for you at the focal point of, I want to be creating for other people, but really at the end of the day, like, who are you really creating for? Are you creating for them? Or are you creating for yourself?
Right. Very, very true. Let's jump over to Lucas. So I'm in a good position. I'm actually I think almost done with my sketch. So there we go. Little Sasquatch Lumberjack. And I'm the only one with a chainsaw. So
I love it.
All right.
Yeah.
Jump in.
All right.
You look so menacing, Patrick, with that background. Like.
That's right.
All right, coming back. Ooh.
Oh yeah.
I see. You must definitely have the whole flannel.
Leave the red
down.
on. Leave the red on.
Well, it's just showing the line art. So, yeah,
I love the line art.
I might have a few flannels here and there.
You definitely have the flannel down. I love the character that you designed of the Sasquatch as well, and the simplicity that he has. He's not too complex. He's not too defined, but he's very, what a great character design right there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and I love how he's got his little hat and
is it a toque? No, it's not a toque. He should be wearing a toque.
He's comfy. He's doing his thing. He got hired on for the job, and he's trying to get the jobs completed. The important thing. So I'm using.
Pull off the red for a second. Let's pull off the red for a second, because I like seeing the red, but I like seeing the defining ink too. That gives your character a lot more feel to it. What a great piece here.
I love it. And I love his expression too. He's just ready to go. I love it.
He's working hard. He's making the money.
And I've learned how to draw plaid. Thank you. I didn't know how to draw.
Well, see, go ahead.
Drawing that manly merman lumberjack actually really helps.
Oh, I can imagine that it really allowed you to do some fun stuff with that.
Oh yeah, well,
they were so different.
I had a good time with them. I keep talking about going back and doing more, but I'm also like, I've drawn like 8 or 9 of them. I'm kind of done for a while.
I get that way.
So is your process to do your pencils, your inks, and then color?
Yep. So I always kind of have an idea of where I want to take color, and sometimes I'll do like a quick little color block just to kind of figure things out. But for the most part, I just adjust colors on the fly and see where they take me.
That's great. I like that. And I love the way that it's got that wet feel to it.
Oh yeah. And that's actually one of those watercolor brushes. I was used to using one of the in-house brushes. Where is that? I don't know where I put it. The Nico Roll, which is like, it's a gritty brush. And I was like, oh, this looks good, because when you think of the texture for the plaid, I don't like to make it solid. I like to make it look like it's just kind of weathered a little bit.
Yeah, a little overlay.
Yeah, exactly. So but recently I started using the watercolor brush to do the same thing, and it just worked perfectly.
Now I can already see him with like a red beard.
I don't know where you got that from.
I don't know either. What a great piece that you have here. This is fantastic.
I like the detail lines too, the way you're doing it on the roots of the trees, and the the bark of the tree. I like those little marks.
Thank you. One of the things that I've always really enjoyed are the details, are the little things that kind of share the space, share the look. Like I could leave the branches as they are, I could leave the roots as they are, but by adding just a couple of little tick marks and lines and just keep them varied, I think it just adds so much more detail to the, well, I mean, it is detail, but it adds more to the story.
It adds more realism or life to your piece. I'm the same way. You know, I can draw, I can choose to leave it kind of open and stuff and let people imagine it, but I would rather put the lines in. And that's where I start to see different things within the piece. When I start adding lines to the trees or the rocks, that's when the faces start to get drawn.
Yep. Oh yeah, no, it's fun. So like with this, like I'm good with my sketch, with my ink work. Like I'm gonna probably start jumping into my color and kind of playing around with that. So yeah, I have all these different brushes. I usually end up using like a clean brush just to kind of play around. Yeah, it's, what's nice about it is, say if I'm gonna go ahead and just start with Sasquatch, is I get this nice kind of watercolor texture. And
okay, now I want to play more with Procreate.
And I'll try to layer it a little bit and just kind of add a bit more texture here and there. I do have a watercolor and acrylic background. I studied acrylic in college and got a BFA in that. But right after college, I jumped into digital media because I was always like, all right, I'm gonna get into comics. That's my goal. And that was kind of where everything was at.
See, I like that. That's got a nice feel to it. And see, and I'm a hard inker. I like having the crisp, clean line.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's nice seeing the non-crisp line, you know, and the style that you bring to that. What a gorgeous feel that it has.
Well, I was very much in the same boat as you. I loved having like the solid shape, solid, crisp lines, but something always felt off. Like I would do the piece, I'd finish it and be like, all right, I'm done. But I wasn't always ever completely satisfied. And
it feels hard.
Yeah, a lot of people kind of always say that my characters are whimsical and lighthearted, and I just wasn't always feeling that with that brush or with those particular brush styles and shapes. So now that I'm doing something like this for the first time in a long time, like I feel like my work feels more me, more complete. As you said, you know, you get into your 30s and you're like, I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, and then you get in your 50s and you go, wow, I really didn't realize what I was doing. Now I'm starting to figure it out. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I love this style. That's great.
And I love the Sasquatch. What a great piece. You know.
Thank you.
It's definitely, it's a great character design. It's very fluid, you know, and you got great movement in the piece. And I think that's important. And a lot of people don't realize how to put movement in a piece. They get very static with their art.
Yep.
And this has
flow is important.
And this has great movement.
So do you work from like your own like preferred swatch colors, or do you kind of just let it go each time you start?
I do have colors that I like to default on, but so like if I open up this, you'll see that I've got my standard set. I've actually built color palettes for different projects, so like Battlestar skating projects, Battlestar backgrounds. I even built a grayscale palette just because I wanted to have something that I can reference if I ever needed it. And then my friend Mike actually sent me a skin tones palette that he created based on like these various skin tones that you can pull from. But for the most part, like these are all the colors that I generally work from. And then eventually I might go back in and use like the adjustment sliders. So I might up the saturation a little bit. I might tweak the colors a little bit around here and there. But for the most part, like I have the idea in my head and then I'll just play with it after the fact.
This is great. This is great. Well, we need to jump back into Patrick and see what Patrick's doing and get ready to close her up.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and stop
This
sharing.
has been a real treat, though. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. So.
All right, there we go.
Hey, look at that.
I still like his buckle, but
his buckle. I was trying to think, what would his name be? And I don't know. I just settled on Buck. Maybe it's Call of the Wild
Bartholomew.
or something. Yeah.
Mine's Maurice.
Maurice.
I think I'm gonna go with Phil.
Bill,
like,
that's a good one.
So I like what you did with the hair here. The hair has a very natural hair feel.
Yeah, he definitely put some product in. That's for sure.
Well, just even with the way that you used your line work on the pencils and stuff of that nature, the hair feels like hair, especially on his arms.
Yeah, I was having fun with that. I really enjoyed just this bushy, burly, forearms.
And make the blue disappear for a sec. So let's get rid of your sketch lines. Layer 2. So that now I can see a little bit better.
Yeah, that fur texture is just fantastic.
Talking about brushes and stuff, I can't remember where I got them now, but I love.
Stole them.
No, I actually bought them. It might be this comics smudge pack or max pack I bought from somebody, but I love this kind of dark gray, like a 6B pencil, and that's my favorite thing to draw in now. And once I found a brush that did that for me on Procreate, I was like, yeah, I'm done. I do everything that way now.
I hate to admit it. I actually like drawing with a big ballpoint pen. That's kind of,
That's how I got through high school.
Yeah, same here.
I still draw with a Bic.
Yeah, my entire sketchbook all through school was always a Bic pen.
Yep.
And
Mostly
I think I learned
from the teacher.
What's that?
Mostly the Bic pens I stole from the teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say most of my experience in sketching was learning how to force a Bic pen to shade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and it's almost like once I get one tool I like, I just stick with it. I don't want to change. And I used to worry more about doing inking and stuff, but now I pretty much just take my pencils and go with it. And then I just tune them up and make them more refined as I go.
This is fantastic.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. So one more question, and then I'll ask our final question.
Shoot.
All right. First of our two last questions. What do you do to stay positive when times are tough?
What do you do?
Now I think more than ever we've experienced this thing where we're trying to find ways to be positive. What do you do?
I mean, that's a good question. Well, a lot of it boils down to just being with the ones that you care about, the ones that do inspire you. My wife and I have routines that we go through often, one of which my favorite things is just going for a walk. It helps to kind of give that clarity and focus for what I need to do throughout the day, the week, the month. But to remain positive, it's just knowing that there's always something good later. Like there's always going to be something good at the end of the tunnel, I think. And I have to think it that way, because if I don't, then what's the point?
Yeah, I agree with you. Routine and reminding ourselves what we're grateful for, that's good. How about you, Travis? What do you do?
One of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Okay.
And he was a doctor that survived the camps in the 40s, the Holocaust camps. And he said that the people that survived the camps were the ones that continued to maintain hope.
Yeah. And
I find that to be quite interesting. Even now, we look at everything that's happening, and there's all these different fears, and everybody attacks each other's fear. Oh, you can't fear this because you have to fear this, and we're neglecting the fact that people are allowed to have emotions, whatever they might be. But I decided when this started that I wasn't going to dwell on the negativity of what was going to happen. That my goal was going to be, how can I be positive? How can I help you think of something else? What can I give back to you? And by doing the coloring book pages, so I, like this afternoon, I'll draw 3 more, and we update one Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and they're free for anybody. I don't care who, you can share them, do whatever you want. But the goal was to create something to allow you to think about something else, to just find something else to do that's a stress reliever. And it's nothing major. It's something very small. But I have found that as I see the pictures come back in, that kind of builds my spirit, like people are actually using it, that they're doing what they were supposed to. The other thing that I have found that really helps is when I take me out of the equation. Because I notice that when I'm feeling miserable or down or depressed or sad or anxious, I'm only thinking about me. You know, what's happening to me? Am I going to get sick, or am I going to have a job, or am I going to be able to do this? You notice how it's all revolved about me. And when you pull you out of the equation and you make it about somebody else, then your spirit changes. It doesn't mean that the stuff goes away. Your focus changes though. So for instance, this last week, I got to help watch the Salvation Army distribute food boxes to anybody that wanted one. I got, you know, and I realized the more that I do stuff for other people, the more that I make myself available as best that I can, the better I end up feeling about who I am as an individual. And things just seem to go better. I feel a lot more at peace with the direction of things that are happening. It doesn't mean that I won't feel those emotions of anxiousness. It just means that I'm learning to pull me out of the equation and put somebody else in. So as I serve somebody else, I feel better about who I am, and I feel that there is definitely a light at the end of the tunnel because of it.
I love that. That's great, Travis.
Yeah, I think definitely in a lot of ways, putting other people ahead of you, it gives you a purpose, it gives you a focus, and that in and of itself you want to be better for other people in many respects. And even if it's just having a conversation and just being there for somebody else in a way, you never know how that's going to impact them.
Well, it's even like this, doing this talk and draw, not drink and draw, but talk and draw, has really, I think, helped me as a person, because all of a sudden during the week, I'm talking with Patrick and another artist, and like today with you, and it just really helps me go, you know what? There's some good stuff going on out there. There's some good things that are happening. There's some good, you know, people that are in the same boat as I am. And we might all believe a little differently, but we're all got those same emotions. And you know, this has really, I think, been beneficial for me just to hear another voice going, yeah, this is how I handle it. And I've enjoyed it.
Yep. I agree. And, you know, the only other thing I could add is that for me, art is a great stress reliever. And so that's been one of my goals this entire time, is to just make more art while the world is upside down. Just that makes me feel better. All right. Yeah, last question. Oh, I'm sorry, Lucas. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. Well, I was going to say, one of the things that I was doing when all of this started was I was seeing all the helpers. I was seeing all the people that were making art and sharing and doing all sorts of things. And one of my favorite things that I was really enjoying was a lot of creators were doing these like little videos and tutorials and how-tos for kids. You know, kids were in the worst of it. So, you know, just giving them something, but also having, like, it gives the parents a bit of a reprieve to refocus if they need to. And so that was something that I wanted to do as well, was like, well, I'm going to try to draw a little bit. And I did have some kids send me some of the drawings that I've done, but you have to maintain yourself in that same respect. So much like Travis, I switched to doing coloring pages and getting other things and other opportunities, but just being around. So I get a lot of questions from parents that are like, well, my kid wants to do this thing, you know, what would you recommend? And just having, like, even just having conversations with the parents, being like, how can I help you? It's 5 minutes, but it still helps.
Yep, I agree. All right, last question, Lucas.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's throw Lucas's back up. Put his picture back up.
Yep, let me
He's still working.
say goodbye to Buck.
See you, Buck.
Bye, Doug.
All right, go ahead, Lucas.
All right. There you are.
Look at that.
There we go.
See, and you thought I was fast. Lucas got full color.
Wow.
Dang, fool.
That's
awesome.
That is, again, the thing I really enjoy about these brushes is it makes me feel faster.
That's awesome. That looks fantastic.
That's great.
So last question. What's your last
question? Why do you make art, Lucas?
Because I want to.
Yes.
I make art because it makes me happy. I make art because it gives me purpose. I make art because at the end of the day, I can't stop. I won't stop. I do it because it allows me to get my ideas on paper. It allows me to be able to share a part of myself with other people that may eventually want to do this, but it allows me to be able to do something that is purely me.
Oh, that's a great piece. What a great answer. Thank you.
Great answer, great piece, and great time with you guys today. It's been real fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here.
So where do we find you?
Yep.
That's a great question. So,
because we want people to find you.
Aside from going all the way to Alaska, how else can we connect with you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, of course, first and foremost, get your butts up to Alaska, come experience it. You know, it's a unique place. But you can find my work at lucaselliottart.com. It's ELLIOTT. Just because I say that because a lot of people, they spell my name with 2 L's and my last name with 2 L's and 1 T, and then suddenly they're like, I can't find you. And so lucaselliottart.com. And then all of my social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that is just at Lucas Elliott Art.
I'm jealous because I have to tell people to put a J in the middle of my name because otherwise they get an underwear model.
Huh. I was always kind of curious about that one. Thank you.
Yeah. I learned that the hard way at dinner with the family. Let's Google Dad. Whoa, let's not.
No. That's amazing. Yeah, that's good story. Thank you.
And where do you get Battlestar?
So Battlestar, again, if you go through my main site, lucaselliottart.com, you can find Battlestar through my storefront, which is just lucaselliottart.storynv.com. But if you want to follow it online, it is available through Webtoon as well.
Do you like Webtoon?
You know, it's better than Tumblr, so I'm not complaining.
Okay.
I enjoy it. I think it's a great way to be able to kind of share stories, and I'm really enjoying seeing what people are putting out there. So it's different. I haven't had as much time to be on there lately, but once the physical copies come in, then I will be putting more onto Webtoon.
Very cool, man. Very, very cool. Well, keep up the wonderful work. And if someone wanted to find your coloring pages, do you just have them anywhere, or?
So I have them open in my my Patreon, and so anybody can download them. You don't have to support, you don't have to give, but if somebody's like, hey, you know what, I'll chip in $1 a month, that's totally fine. With stuff like that, it's just free. So patreon.com, Lucas Elliott Art, you can find pages. I've got a bunch of kids book pages that I did, I want to say a few weeks ago. And then I recently just took a lot of the Star Wars characters that I've been doing over the last couple of weeks and made those into coloring pages. So if you want to color,
awesome.
Yeah. So if you want to color Jabba the Hutt, or if you want to color Cad Bane, or even General Hux, you're more than welcome to.
Hey, make sure you sign this.
All right. And to round it out, Travis, where do we find you?
You find me at beanleafpress.com, or you can find me on Patreon, where also my coloring pages are free. You don't have to support. You can just grab what you need, or on Facebook. And I'm always on Facebook.
Yeah, me too. You can find me, patrickscullin.com. on Instagram, Facebook as well. And yeah, don't Google Patrick Scullin either. But no, you can. I think I'm top of the list. Thankfully, I don't have much competition. But hey, it's been a great time talking with you guys. Look forward to seeing you again soon. All right, we're going to sign off. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Have a good one.